Hi, everybody. Russ on the West Ham Network. Hope you're all safe. And well, if new ender, give it a like, give it a comment, give it a share, give it a bloody good subscribe. Last night we had Tony Carr on the channel with Anton. Great show. Really interesting show about the academy, talking about his views in the academy, his current views in the academy, what it was, what he thought was, why it was set up. And he went to a few of the players he had under his tenure and a few players that he sort of saw in the U team, like Elise. Currently, I mean, when he left, I think he was in the under 15s, but playing under 18s, and how he thought he might be, the next one on the line and stuff like that. All that good stuff. Please check it out. It's a great show. Now, obviously, we've got Chelsea 12:30 kickoff on Saturday morning, or lunchtime, nice and early start. And we thought for the previous, there's something different. Let's get the views of someone. We could go and talk to a fan channel and stuff like that. But I thought let's talk to someone who's got a foot in both camps and find out, in the middle. Is he sitting on the fence? Has he got splinters up his bum? So I brought friend of the channel, Scott Minto, to come and spend 20 minutes or so and get his thoughts on West Ham season, Chelsea season, and the game ahead. Over to you, Russ. So we've got Scott here, obviously a foot in both camps with the West Ham Chelsea game on Saturday, 12:30 kickoff. Scott, obviously from a I know you've got to do the Talk Sport podcast. This is like your sort of pre-match warm up. Talking
about. Russ, I'm not doing it this week, actually, but I'm going to do it Monday. So I'll be talking post game, but I will be at the game as well. So looking forward to hopefully see you there.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye out for you in the press lounge. So in terms of the game, I mean West Ham, Chelsea, I think both teams are going what they call a transitional period, it seems, at the moment. What do you make of West Ham's season this year so far?
How long you got?
I know.
I mean, look, it looked like the club was ready to kick on. I think what David Moyes had done in the two previous seasons were nothing short of sensational. To do so well in the Premier League alongside doing well in Europe. And, I'm sure there must be still people at West Ham thinking, how did we not get to the final? Because I think if West Ham had got to the final, then they'd have won it. And then the money spent. So then it's a different type of question to David Moyes, isn't there? About, okay, now you're not the underdog. You've got to try and find a way of getting these players and maybe a slightly different style. And I think, from the start of the season, Russ, it's not been good. Obviously, Europe, fantastic, 100% record there. And that's great. That I think it's the same with the conference, isn't it? Where if you win the group, you don't have to play in the round of 32. So that's good. But it's all about the Premier League. And that's not been good enough. And you still feel even now Moyes is trying to find his best 11. Yeah. And we're in February now. I'm okay, maybe we shouldn't be in February. We're in January, really, if you take the World Cup out.
Yeah.
But, you're halfway through the season and I'm still not sure he knows his best 11 or even formation.
You're right, and I think injuries have made a bit. And I know Chelsea have had an absolute, as long as your arm list of injuries as well. And I know every club does, but it seems that we always have injuries to keep people. And I think the re-emergence, this post World Cup of Naya Faged, has really sort of kick-started our season. I think now you're totally right. The Premier League is the be all and end all, and Europe is great. But you need to be in the Premier League, don't you? Particularly when you spend 180 million pounds in the summer, which is short change for Chelsea, obviously, in terms of their spending this season.
Yeah, anything short change for Chelsea right now. But look, you're right. But West Ham shouldn't be, and I think Moisey will admit it, shouldn't be talking about staying in the Premier League. Yeah. Now, I think to think about sort of going for top 6 all the time. Oh, we've got someone in the background there. Yeah, so I think that it definitely shouldn't be about staying in the Premier League. West Ham are different, but I also think Moyes is a little bit up against it because I mean, complete underachievement this season in the Premier League. Yeah. No one can argue that. But I think what's happened in the previous 2 seasons has been almost so good. It's been unrealistic.
Yeah.
So I think the last couple of seasons in the Premier League have been wow. This season's been way too bad. I think West Ham are somewhere in the middle. And I think Moyes has earned the right to say, look, we've had a season of new signings, of injuries. As you say about Aged coming back, and how good does he look? I mean, what about that tackle against Callum Wilson? I think he's earned the right to go again next season. My worry is if West Ham stay where they are, like all owners, is that they'll say we can't afford this to go on. And also the worrying side of, you look at Sean Dyche, who's come in at Everton as we speak, played 1-1-1. Now let's wait and see after 6 games whether the new manager bounce lasts or not.
Yeah.
Lopetegui at Wolves, he's come in. I like him. I mean, really, I mean, Wolves is a great club, lovely club. But Lopetegui's been Real Madrid manager. He's been the national manager for Spain. So that's an amazing coup to get him. And these new managers do come in, and if they're good enough, they can make the bounce. So the question is, I don't even know if you were going to ask me, but I'll answer the question that might be in your head and a few others as well, is, you know, is there a change for David Moyes? Now, in my opinion, there's no way you can change David Moyes unless there's someone outstanding out there.
Yeah.
And that is willing to go to West Ham. Now, you and I both know, Russ, how big the club actually is, and the passion of the fans, just incredible. You know, but there might be some managers out there who think they're too good for West Ham. I think once they realised and they went there on a regular basis, they realised that, you know, what's possible.
Yeah.
And especially if the owners are willing to, and the new guy especially, willing to, you know, spend a lot of money and really try to kick on, then it's exciting times. But at this moment in time, it is all about staying in the Premier League and getting away from the relegation zone. You do not want to be having 10 games left and you're still a point above the relegation zone.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And I think out of the bottom 6, West Ham's the only one that's stuck. Everyone else is twisted in terms of manager. Southampton maybe twice this season, if maybe, which is ridiculous, really. But it does seem to be. I mean, I think there has definitely been a bit of an upturn in January since, and I think it coincides with Nayef's resurgence into the side after injury, because I think, for me, it always starts in the back. And you know, you look in the West Ham's defense. I saw a stat yesterday. We've only conceded 1 goal from set plays all season. We've had 101 or 102 corners we've successfully defended. So it's not the defense, it's the attack. And I think now with Nayef, we've really shored that defense up even more. We should see. Obviously, we went in January, went and bought Danny Ings, who then gets injured after 20 seconds. Should be he's in the squad, obviously the matchday squad for the Newcastle game, and hopefully we'll be back in the squad for the Chelsea game. But obviously Chelsea bought some really good players in January as well.
Sorry, just on that, can I just totally agree with you and back up what you're saying? You know, 18 goals in 21 games.
Yeah.
You know, is there any wonder why West Ham are where they are?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's got to be sorted. I don't know how fast Kamaka is from being fit. Mikel Antonio's not the player he was last season, and therefore you need Danny Ings fit. I think Danny Ings is a good signing. Just need him fit.
Yeah, he's a great. I think Danny Ings was a great January signing for me. I think if we bought him in the summer, everyone thinks, "Oh, Danny Ings," until he starts scoring goals. But for someone who's Premier League ready, he doesn't have that bedding in period. He can sort of hit the ground running. And yeah, we need him firing in all cylinders, and we need all of them. I think Bowen has been poor this season, and we've missed people like Maxwell Cornet. I think would have made a huge difference this season as well. But no, I think Skamaka will be back because we've got Spurs next week. I think he'll be back for the Spurs game.
Okay.
As you know, it's all fun and games. So Chelsea and Spurs, 2 London derbies, one after the other.
Absolutely.
It's all fun. But in terms of Chelsea, obviously, you know, they went. I like the look of young lad Mudryk. I think he looks really exciting. He didn't play well against Fulham, but he had a cold apparently.
Yeah.
So they've went and got. You know, again, you can see what Potter's trying to do there. I mean, they're 9th, I think, in the league now. Will they have? Do you think because of the league's gone now for them? The league's gone. Will they put all their eggs in the basket in terms of the Champions League next week? Do you think they might have one eye on that?
Oh, they'll go big on the Champions League, and let's not forget a couple of seasons ago when Frank lost his job halfway through the season. Thomas Tuchel came in, and
Yeah.
what happened? You know, so I wouldn't rule Chelsea out. Chelsea are one of those sides that very much in that sort of transition. Obviously, the new owners are trying to spend a lot of money on players. I think too many players personally, but I like their style. I'd rather them, from a Chelsea point of view, overspend on players than say no, we're going to be very careful and go that way. I just think they've bought too many players, which I think is a problem for Graham Potter. But they'll go big. They'll go big on the Champions League. I'm doing that game for Talk Sport, Dortmund away. So you got to try and get through there, and then you never know what can happen in the quarterfinals. And of course, Robert Di Matteo, what he did with Eddie Newton in 2012, you just sneak under the radar really. And before you know it, you're in the semis. You've got a great chance. But I still feel, Russ, that they can't afford to just say, right, all our eggs are in that Champions League basket. They have to show something. Graham has to show something where, what are they? They're 10 points off fourth at the moment. You talk about the titles out. Well, most people would say, and myself included, fourth is out. But what you want to do is build some kind of momentum to say that at the end of the season, we're fifth or sixth. We're only 3 or 4 points off. If the game, if there'd have been a 42 game season, we probably would have got into the top 4 and they went deep into the Champions League. That then gives them a lot of belief for the following season. Whether they then go and buy another 10 players or not in the summer, I don't know. But, that's what Graham needs to do. So to put all their eggs in the Champions League basket, no, not all of them. But Champions League is almost that kind of sexy, glamorous, take your mind off what's happened over the last couple of months if they can go deep into the competition. But they have to have that alongside the Premier League and go on a good run as well.
Yeah, I think that was our issue last year. I think we sort of prioritised the Europa League, it seemed, and so that the league form dipped, and that was a big issue for us. And obviously, we don't start until March for the Conference League. So, and again, some big teams in there. The likes of Lazio. We could have the return of Felipe Anderson if we get drawn against them, if they get through the next round. But in terms of Chelsea, obviously they've had loads of injuries for them. We've had injuries as well. They seem to be getting some of their key players back now. I think Chilwell, I think Reece James. I think they had Zakaria was in training yesterday. They pictured him, so I think the key word for both teams is going to be momentum, isn't it? Because we both seem to be trying to build something from a disaster. Yeah, it all takes a purpose. Chelsea had a disastrous, not compared to West Ham, but in their sort of the first half of the season, the first third of the season, whatever it is. They seem to be sort of trying to put in place something, and the transition. I spoke to loads of Chelsea fans, and they want to give Potter time because they can see what he's doing. He's bringing in young, exciting players, not necessarily Galactico type players, which previous regime did. It seems he's doing it the right way, almost like how he did it in Brighton, but with like another 50 million quid on top of the price tags for people. And at least for some people. And obviously on Saturday, one of the players who is getting a lot of criticism from Chelsea fans is Mason Mount, obviously. And obviously tomorrow on Saturday it'll be Mount versus Rice, the friends reunited. Why is he getting so much stick from Chelsea fans? Because I don't watch it game in, game out, but it seems he's one of their own.
Do you know what, Russ? It's really strange how when he first sort of got into the side and came back from Derby and Frank put him in, and I covered the Championship at the time, and he was really, really good. But even I sort of thought, can he can be a Premier League player, but can he be a Chelsea player? Because a Chelsea player is a Champions League player. I think he proved himself absolutely that he can be, but he had to win over a lot of critics even then. There were a lot of fans who, for some reason, weren't having him. And yet you had Frank, who always played him. And then he went and Thomas Tuchel came in and always played him. And then Gareth Southgate was always playing him up until recently. It's a strange coincidence, isn't it? How these top-class managers seem to have him as almost the number one person on the team sheet. Now, has he had a good season? No. But you name me a handful of players that have had a good season at Chelsea. Thiago Silva, Reece James when he's fit. I can't really think of anyone else to be off the top of my head. Anyway, Ben Chilwell when he's fit as well. So I think it's unfair. I think it's really unfair. I think you've got a lad who's come through the ranks, who has got a potential to be a Chelsea player for the next 10 years. But you know what, Russ? That's the world we live in, mate. You
Yeah,
know,
it's true.
we live in a world where you have to keep proving yourself, and that's
Mm.
not necessarily a bad thing. But I just do think that someone like him, again, we talk about Moyes, he earned the rights to stay in the job for longer and sort it out. Mason Mount has earned the right for the fans to stay behind him because we all go through bad patches. And it's just, and you talk about West Ham having a worse season than Chelsea. Well, proportional wise, it's about the same, really.
Yes, yeah.
Chelsea are mid-table, shouldn't be mid-table. So it's tough times at the moment. But that's where, again, someone like Mason Mount, not just in terms of his technique and not just in terms of how he is tactically, because I remember speaking to Jody Morris when he was at Derby and then they went to Chelsea, and he went, Scotty, he said, I'm telling you now, he will do brilliantly for Chelsea, and he was absolutely spot on. But he's also got the mindset. He's come through that initial, the fans weren't having him. Then he's been brilliant. Bit of a tough time at the moment. He will come through this again. I'm sure he will. But why? I'm not sure, Russ. I'm really
as long as it's not on Saturday, I don't care. he can come back after Saturday. And obviously Enzo Fernandez, they spent a lot of money on Enzo Fernandez, and obviously that's then put in a debate. You know, I know our friend Jim White, he put on the White and Jordan show that, you know, that Declan Rice has now got 120 million pound price tag set on his head and stuff like that. So it's going to be.
Is he your friend, Jim White, or is he David Sullivan's friend? You know, because I think he's quite close with David there, isn't he? So I wonder if there's a little bit of a message being put out there.
I'm sure there would have been. He's a friend of mine. He's a personal friend of mine.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah. And so I'll tell you the story one day about him. I'll tell you on Saturday. I'll tell you the story about me and Jim. But yeah, no, obviously it's going to be, you know, Fernandez versus Rice, really, in terms of both similar types of position in terms of their playing. It's going to be a hell of a battle, I think, them two. I'm really looking forward to it.
It's going to be it's going to be a fantastic battle, and although they won't necessarily always come up against each other because they're kind of holding, but where I think Dec actually. See, I saw a lot of Enzo Fernandez. I work in the Portuguese league, so I just didn't see him in the World Cup. I saw him for Benfica this season, and he was bossing games, and he's a really, really good player. But I love Dec, and I think he's got even more to his game. I think he just keeps on getting better and better from when he first came in the side, where he was meant to be a centre half, and then he was pushing to midfield, but actually he's going to go back to centre half. And then you realise actually he's just getting better and better as a centre midfield and can affect the game in that position. I think he's got even more to his game. You know, people say, does he score enough goals? Well, I don't think he's allowed to get forward as much. You know, if back in the day, a 4-4-2 and, you know, one would go, one would sit, one would go, one would sit. If they had that, then I think that would be fine. But I think where Dec is, first of all, he seems a really good lad. I don't know him, but he seems a really good lad. I think he'd be a great teammate. But I also can just see from the outside that when things aren't going well, or even setting standards in training, which someone like Nobes would have done, even though he wasn't playing regularly. And I think that's been a miss as well, where the standards in training on a daily basis. I think Dec would be the one now to be stepping up to doing that. Perhaps not still at the level that Nobes would have done, but so there's that. There's the character of the guy. There's the standards of the guy, and then there's the ability of the guy as well. Where he can play as a holding midfielder, and he's brilliant at that. But you almost feel he's slightly wasted in that. You know, you love seeing him running with the ball. He's one of the best central midfielders, holding midfielders, running with the ball in the world. You know, it's almost like he seems to get quicker, and the players who are chasing him, even though he's got the ball, can't catch him up. There's been a bit of a question mark about his sort of long-range passing, and maybe he can not gamble a bit more, but just trust his own ability and trust his passing a bit more. But I think it's going to be really interesting because I know West Ham fans won't like me, you know, what I'm about to say, but I do think they're resigned to it, that this is Dec's last season.
Oh, yeah. It's an open secret. You know, it's an open secret. We'll put
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think West Ham fans begrudge him for that either, because they know he's a Champions League player. If the Hammers could have got into the top four and kicked on this season, then you can say, look, we're in the Champions League and stay with us. But he's not just an international, he's a Champions League player as well. So then you're coming up, so then, which is why the narrative now is about how much, you know, price tags coming out. Because I think he's got a year left with an option. So it's basically 2 years. So this is the time now. This is the summer, because if you go till next season, 1 year left in your contract, you can halve the fee, really.
Yeah.
So now they're trying to build it up. And actually, if Dec outplays Enzo on Saturday, then the narrative would be even more. See, 105, 106 million for him. How can he not be at least that?
Yeah.
And actually, if you want to go down that route anyway, I believe Dec's worth more. Now, what he's done in the Premier League and for England is more than what Enzo Fernandez has done. Well, obviously won in the Premier League, but even in the Portuguese league, and even though he helped them to the World Cup, I think he only made his first cap in September. So Dec's been around a little bit longer. So I would say if you want to go down that route, then he's worth more than Enzo Fernandez. But how can you compare? It's like you're buying a house, Russ.
Yeah, exactly.
What someone willing to pay.
Yeah.
So it depends on that individual. And Chelsea, we know, are spending a lot of money.
Yeah, you're totally right. I think you're right. It sort of puts this parameter up there now, so you sort of compare them to the market value. It's the same as a house, isn't it? It's like you see the house across the road, and that's gone for £250,000, £750,000. You're thinking, actually, our house is slightly better. Have we got a conservatory? Have they got a conservatory?
They're overpaying you at West Ham. £750,000 house. I love that.
How about? Oh, well, yeah, okay, right, yeah. Well, it's Hornchurch, isn't it? So, it was. Although I do keep the wife says it's Emerson Park, not Hornchurch, Russ.
Is that right? You could probably double 750, really. I know, really. But go on anyway.
It's Hornchurch, but you know what I mean. So it is true, and I think it's going to be really interesting. I think Dex, he's in a season what we haven't played very well. He's been the shining light, and I think also because we've got now Nayoff behind him, defensively, he doesn't have to do that role as much. So last couple of games we have seen him doing these sort of lung busting runs into the into set, and we love seeing it because it's great. It's a great for a young lad. Well, he's still a young lad, isn't he? He's played a couple of hundred games and he's only sort of 23. Right, okay, so I know you've got to go soon. What's the score going to be on Saturday?
Mate, don't worry. Let's do another 5 minutes. No problem at all.
Okay, right. What's the score going to be on Saturday?
You do want to ask me. I have got things. So I'm doing something for Talk Sport now, actually, as well, ahead of the game. And I am going to be talking about West Ham and comparing what happened 20 years ago, which
fantastic.
I'm pretty sure there won't be the same results.
No.
But you just want to see West Ham get away from that relegation zone.
Yeah, we do. I mean, obviously, last time we played when we played Stamford Bridge earlier this season, we had the VAR fast and had the goal disallowed, and I think actually that probably started the downturn to our season. I think because we were sort of playing okay, playing, and then we just went downhill, and no VAR decisions. The luck just doesn't go against you. It goes against when you're down the bottom. It seems the luck. I know it's ridiculous. But the higher up, they seem to. It's really strange. But obviously, foot in both camps. Obviously, you're covering it at TalkSport, but the press box is in the West Ham area. So what was the score going to be then, Scott? Come on.
I'm always as a pundit, you never try to fence it.
Yeah.
But West Ham Chelsea games, I always fence it. Because both clubs gave me different things in my career. So I just want both to do well. What do I think? I think West Ham are in a decent run of form at the moment.
Yep.
I think the fans will get behind them.
Definitely.
And once the fans are behind West Ham, it's a difficult place to go. However, if Chelsea do start well and go one up, then, the atmosphere might turn a little bit and it might be a bit more difficult. This is the start of it's not the start. It's the middle of a run where, Newcastle away, Chelsea at home, Spurs away, and then there's Forest. That's kind of the big game here. But it's so like West Ham to get a draw at St James's Park, to beat Chelsea at home, to draw away at Spurs.
Yeah.
But what do I think is going to happen? I think it depends on Chelsea. I think if Chelsea click the players that they've got, I think next season they will be going for the title, not just top four. So I think they're capable of beating anybody on their day. So if they click, then I think Chelsea can win it. Chelsea will win this. But I don't think they're anywhere quite near clicking at the moment. And I think with West Ham, with the confidence they've got in recent games, with a few players coming back to form, with Agger back in the side and playing really well, I genuinely believe this will end up being a draw.
Yeah, I think it'll be a draw. I think it's gonna be a draw. I think it's gonna be a good game. I think it's gonna be a cracking game. As I said, the fans will be behind them. We haven't had hardly any home games this year already, and I think we've got it seems to be we had like them all bunched up in November, and so we haven't been there to the London Stadium for a couple of weeks. So Mrs. Budden's been very grateful of me being around doing the housework. So she'll have to make do on Saturday. 12:30 kickoff as a footballer. Obviously, there's so many different game times, and they're playing all different, because of TV and stuff. What time did you enjoy playing the most? Was it nighttime games? Was it the traditional 3 o'clock kickoffs, or the early ones, so you're done by the afternoon?
Do you know what? It's a really good question because, we used to train. I don't know if the lads still do, but be in for 10, train for 10:30. So your body Monday to Friday was kind of accustomed to a morning training session and working at its peak in the mornings. And then suddenly you have to wait till 3 o'clock on a Saturday, where quite often you're having a little lie down.
Yeah.
So as long as you can get your head around the fact that you don't eat chicken and pasta at 9 o'clock in the morning, you maybe have some cereal and some toast and, poached egg or whatever. Physically wise, the 12:30 kickoff should be better.
Yeah.
So I actually just said to myself, I'm not going to try and have the pasta and chicken early in the morning. I'm just going to have what I'd normally have in the morning and then play the game. So physically, I think I was absolutely fine with the 12:30. It's more of a mental thing. But what I would say, and especially at Upton Park, those night games, mate.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. The atmosphere there, just amazing.
Special,
amazing.
Isn't it? Special place. Right, Mr. Minto, thank you very, very much for your time, sir.
Pleasure.
And we'll catch up on Saturday.
See you Saturday. Look forward to it, mate.
Cheers. Thanks.